Word, metal. Description refers to a class of solid materials characterized by properties like conductivity and luster. It's a basic element found in nature and used to create tools, structures, and countless objects. It's a tangible substance with diverse applications. Phrases of example. First, the silver metal shone in the moonlight. Second, the bridge was made of strong metal girders. Third, he melted the metal to make a beautiful ring. Word, notably. Description, used to introduce something that is particularly interesting or important. It highlights a specific point or detail that deserves special attention, often contrasting with other factors. Signals something worthy of being singled out. Phrases of example. First, her voice, notably high and resonant, filled the room. Second, the contrast was notably stark between the two landscapes. Third, the project's success was notably attributed to the team's dedication. Word, stage. Description, a part of a performance, like a play or show. It can also mean a period or phase of something, like a stage in a process. It's used to describe steps or sections within a larger sequence of events or actions. Phrases of example. First, the stage is set for a great tragedy. Second, the curtain rises and the play begins. Third, he stepped onto the stage, bathed in the spotlight. Word, define. Description means to explain the exact meaning or nature of something. It involves clearly stating the characteristics or boundaries of a concept, word, or object. It's used to clarify understanding and provide a precise description. Phrases of example. First, to define is to bound, and in bounding to obscure. Second, we define ourselves by the company we keep. Third, let me define it. Happiness is being satisfied with what you have. Word, glad. Description means feeling pleasure or happiness about something. It expresses a positive emotion, often used to show appreciation or satisfaction about a situation or event. It describes a feeling of contentment and joy. Phrases of example. First, I am glad you're here, Pip. Second, I am glad to hear you have some idea of the life you wish to lead. Third, we were glad to find ourselves back in the familiar comfort of home. Word, helicopter. Description, a type of aircraft that can take off and land vertically, unlike planes that need a runway. It's characterized by its large rotor blades on top and is often used for rescue missions or transport to difficult-to-reach places. Phrases of example. First, the helicopter hung in the air, a metallic dragonfly. Second, a helicopter flew overhead, shattering the silence of the jungle. Third, they saw a helicopter descending, a dark shadow against the sunset. Word, multiple. Description means more than two. It describes a quantity or number that is not singular or dual. It's used to indicate several or numerous instances of something, like choices, reasons, or possibilities. Phrases of example. First, he found himself with multiple opportunities to prove his worth. Second, the complex machinery produced multiple, overlapping realities. Third, there were multiple reasons why she's not going back. Word, rope. Description, a long, thin, flexible cord typically made of twisted strands. It's used for tying, climbing, or securing objects. It can be made from various materials like hemp, nylon, or even metal, and has many practical uses. Phrases of example. First, he felt a rope of sand tightening around his heart. Second, they used a rope to lower her down into the ravine. Third, he tied the package with a simple rope, a fragile connection. Word, regime. Description refers to a system of government, often implying a period of rule with a specific ideology or way of governing. It can describe a government's policies and power structure, sometimes suggesting authoritarian control or a particular political system. Phrases of example. First, the old regime was crumbling, its foundations eroded by years of neglect. Second, the oppressive regime demanded absolute obedience, stifling any dissent. Third, he fought to dismantle the corrupt regime, envisioning a future of freedom and justice. Word, arrival. Description refers to the act of reaching a destination or coming to a place. It describes the moment someone or something gets there. It can be used for people, vehicles, or deliveries, indicating their arrival at a specific location. Phrases of example. First, she was a woman who always waited for the arrival of the right man, but he never came. Second, the arrival of the king was a cause for great celebration, and the whole city rejoiced. Third, the world would have to wait for the arrival of a new dawn, for this one was lost to the dark. Word, appoint. Description means to officially choose someone for a position or job, often through a formal decision-making process. It suggests a deliberate selection and assignment of responsibility, frequently involving authority and a defined role within an organization. Phrases of example. First, I could not, I cannot. I will not appoint you to a position of such great responsibility. Second, the president has the power to appoint, but the people have the power to disapprove. Third, it is a cruel thing to appoint a man to a post he is not fit to fill. Word, demonstration. Description, a show or explanation of how something works, or a public event showing support for or against an idea. It can refer to a practical display or a formal protest, highlighting a process or expressing a viewpoint. Phrases of example. First, the demonstration of love is in the giving. Second, a peaceful demonstration is a powerful way to make a statement. Third, the whole demonstration of character consists in rising above one's circumstances. Word, exhibit. Description refers to a public display of works of art or other items. It can also mean a demonstration of a quality or characteristic. This word is commonly used in museums, galleries, and when describing someone's behavior or abilities. Phrases of example. First, the museum exhibit featured paintings from around the world. Second, this was a moving exhibit of human suffering. Third, the exhibit was a reminder of a time long past. Word, container. Description, a thing that can hold or enclose something else. It refers to a vessel or receptacle designed to contain items, ranging from boxes and jars to bags and tanks. It's used to describe what holds or stores something. Phrases of example. First, the ship was a steel container filled with hope. Second, a battered tin container held her only possessions. Third, he stored his memories in a mental container, sealed tight. Word, bargain. Description means to obtain something for a lower price than is usually charged. It can also refer to a deal or agreement reached through negotiation, often involving compromise. It suggests a favorable outcome achieved through discussion. Phrases of example. First, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I made a bad bargain. Second, he was a man who knew how to drive a hard bargain. Third, the devil's bargain is always a good deal. Word, deem. Description means to consider something to be true or to judge it as being a certain way. It suggests a formal or authoritative assessment, often involving a considered judgment or evaluation. It's more formal than think or believe. Phrases of example. First, I deem it proper to tell you that you are a fool. Second, he deemed the task beyond his capabilities, a challenge too great. Third, I deem nothing impossible to those who are determined. Word, range. Description means to extend or spread over a distance or area. It can also describe the act of roaming or traveling freely. It implies movement across a space, whether physical or figurative, covering a breadth of territory or possibilities. Phrases of example. First, the mountains range from green to gray, depending on the light. Second, her anger would range from silent fury to shouting. Third, the possible solutions range from simple to incredibly complex. Word attraction. Description refers to a feeling of being drawn to someone or something. It can describe a force that pulls things together or a quality that makes something appealing. It's also used for tourist destinations or enjoyable activities. Phrases of example. First, there was an immediate and terrible attraction between them, a thing of fire and ice. Second, the greatest attraction of the past is that it is the past. Third, he felt a terrible attraction to the old, abandoned house, and he could not stay away from it. Word deep. Description means to a great extent or intensely. It describes the degree to which something is felt or done, emphasizing a significant level of involvement or feeling. It's often used to modify verbs or adjectives. Phrases of example. First, he knew the deep currents of human nature. Second, the ocean is deep and mysterious. Third, she delved deep into the subject. Word coincidence. Description, a chance occurrence of events that appear related, but are not causally linked. It describes a surprising or unlikely occurrence where things happen together by chance, often seen as remarkable or peculiar. Phrases of example. First, it's a curious coincidence though, isn't it? Second, sometimes it's just a coincidence, nothing more. Third, a strange coincidence brought us together. Word my. Description shows possession. It indicates that something belongs to you. It is used before nouns to show that you own or are connected to that thing. It's a very common and basic word for indicating ownership. Phrases of example. First, my heart is like a secret garden. Second, my name is nobody, don't remember my name. Third, my own business is always the hardest to manage. Word transport. Description means to move people or goods from one place to another. It can refer to the act of carrying something or the system used for moving things, like a bus or a train. It emphasizes the process of movement and relocation. Phrases of example. First, I shall transport you to a land of eternal youth and beauty. Second, he arranged to transport the jewels to a safe location. Third, the company specialized in the transport of goods across the country. Word jurisdiction. Description refers to the official power to make legal decisions and enforce them. It defines the scope of authority a court, government, or other body has over a specific area or group of people. It's often used in legal or governmental contexts. Phrases of example. First, the Supreme Court has jurisdiction over cases involving federal law. Second, he questioned the jurisdiction of the court in such a sensitive matter. Third, it fell outside his jurisdiction, a gray area of responsibility. Word nut. Description, a seed with a hard shell and a soft, usually edible part inside. It's often eaten as a snack or used in cooking. It can also refer to a type of food like peanuts or walnuts. Phrases of example. First, a nut is something you crack when you are ready. Second, he was a cracked nut, a peculiar sort of genius. Third, she was a tough nut to crack, that one. Word belt. Description, a strip of material worn around the waist to hold up trousers or a garment. It can also refer to a strip used to transmit motion, like a drive belt in a machine. It's a common, everyday object. Phrases of example. First, I took my gun out of my belt and held it in my hand. Second, he was a man who had no belt. Third, the whole world was a belt of light. Word simply. Description means in a straightforward or uncomplicated manner. It indicates something is easy to understand or does not involve complexity. It's used to present information clearly or to minimize a process. Phrases of example. First, I simply cannot bear it any longer. Second, simply put, he was a broken man. Third, simply because I have been silent does not mean I agree. Word humanitarian. Description describes actions or qualities relating to human welfare, especially efforts to improve the lives of people who are suffering. It suggests compassion and a focus on alleviating suffering, often in situations of crisis or need. Phrases of example. First, the humanitarian spirit is often born from the ashes of tragedy. Second, his humanitarian efforts span decades, bringing solace to countless lives. Third, she dedicated her life to humanitarian aid, a beacon of hope in a world of despair. Word last. Description means to continue until the end or final point. It can refer to time, position, or duration. It describes something that persists or happens until a certain conclusion is reached, often indicating a finality or completion. Phrases of example. First, it was the last thing I expected to see. Second, and last night I dreamed a dream. Third, he held on until the last moment. Word massacre. Description denotes a horrific event involving the mass killing of people. It typically refers to the systematic and brutal slaughter of a large number of individuals, often civilians, and carries strong connotations of violence and brutality. Phrases of example. First, the sheer scale of the massacre stunned even seasoned veterans. Second, it was a massacre of the innocent, a stain upon humanity's soul. Third, the forest floor bore witness to a silent massacre of ambition. Word partial. Description means not complete or total, only existing to a certain extent. It describes something that is incomplete, limited, or only applies to a portion of something. It suggests something is not fully present or applicable. Phrases of example. First, the truth is a partial truth, dependent on the perception of the observer. Second, a partial understanding of history can be more dangerous than none at all. Third, his vision was partial, a fragmented mosaic of memories and desire. Word endorsement. Description denotes public support or approval of a product, idea, or person. It signifies a formal backing, often given by someone with influence or authority. It implies a positive recommendation and can carry significant marketing or political weight. Phrases of example. First, his endorsement of the policy brought widespread condemnation. Second, the candidate sought an endorsement from the influential senator. Third, it was an enthusiastic endorsement of a bold, new direction. Word network. Description, a group of people or organizations connected for a particular purpose. It can also refer to a system of computers or communication channels linked together. It describes connections, systems, or groups working together. Phrases of example. First, a vast network of paths connected the various parts of the forest. Second, the telegraph network was still primitive, unreliable. Third, she built a strong network of friends and colleagues. Word spring. Description means to suddenly jump or move upwards from a seated or lying position. It describes a quick, energetic movement. It can also refer to a small jump or bounce, often used to express surprise or excitement. Phrases of example. First, the water should spring forth, a fountain of life. Second, hope springs eternal in the human breast. Third, spring had sprung, a rush of green across the landscape. Word afternoon. Description, the period of time between noon and evening. It refers to the time of day, after lunchtime, and before night. It's a common way to describe the time you spend after you finish your midday meal. Phrases of example. First, he was sitting on the porch, waiting for the afternoon to end. Second, I was in the afternoon of my life, a time of quietness and peace. Third, the afternoon was a time of ghosts, of shadows, and of memories. Word sugar. Description refers to a sweet, crystalline substance commonly used in food and drinks. It's a natural carbohydrate and often used to add sweetness. It can also refer to the sugar cane plant or sugar beets. Phrases of example. First, she put 2 teaspoons of sugar into her tea. Second, the cake was sweet with sugar and spice. Third, he stirred the sugar into his coffee, a simple pleasure. Word, beef. Description means the meat from a cow. It can also refer to a complaint or a disagreement. When referring to meat, it's a common food. When it means a complaint, it describes dissatisfaction or protest. Phrases of example. First, a man who eats beef is a man who loves life. Second, there's a lot of beef in that country. Third, he was a man who lived his life with a beef in his stomach. Word, beginning. Description refers to the start of something, like an event, journey, or story. It marks the initial point or phase of an activity or process. It's often used to describe the commencement of something new. Phrases of example. First, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Second, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Third, the beginning is the most important part of the work. Word, succession. Description refers to a sequence of people holding a position or events following one another. It indicates a chain or order, often implying inheritance or a series of related things. It is used in contexts like royal lines or a sequence of events. Phrases of example. First, the succession of generations is like a river, it flows, and we are but drops in it. Second, his succession to the throne was fraught with peril and intrigue. Third, the succession of seasons mirrored the decline of his fortunes. Word, solution. Description, a way to fix a problem or deal with a difficult situation. It can be an answer or a method that resolves an issue. It's frequently used when discussing how to overcome challenges or find resolutions. Phrases of example. First, the solution to this problem will be more difficult than you think. Second, there is no easy solution to this, my friend. Third, sometimes, the best solution is to do nothing at all. Word, skin. Description refers to the outer layer of your body, covering and protecting it. It can also describe the peel of a fruit or the surface of something. It's a common word used to describe appearance or texture. Phrases of example. First, the skin of the apples was smooth and shiny. Second, his skin was tanned and weathered by the sun. Third, she felt the skin on her arms prickle with goosebumps. Word, public. Description means something that is available or accessible to everyone. It describes something not private or restricted, often relating to services, spaces, or information intended for general use. Phrases of example. First, the public eye is a powerful and unforgiving lens. Second, he was a man of the public, a servant of the state. Third, the safety of the public is paramount. Word, remarkably. Description means surprisingly or noticeably. It highlights an unusual or impressive quality or degree. It's used to emphasize something that stands out from the expected or typical, suggesting it's worthy of attention. Phrases of example. First, she was remarkably good at remembering names, a skill he envied. Second, he remarkably managed to keep his composure during the chaotic scene. Third, the castle stood remarkably well preserved after centuries of neglect. Word, article. Description, a piece of writing, often found in newspapers or magazines. It can be about news, opinions, or other topics. It's a common form of written communication for sharing information or ideas. Phrases of example. First, the whole article was a bunch of lies, and he knew it. Second, he was reading a long and boring article about the stock market, but he couldn't stop. Third, the article was a masterpiece of journalism, a thing of terrible and beautiful truth. Word, satisfaction. Description denotes a feeling of contentment or pleasure arising from fulfilling a desire or need. It represents a positive emotional response to a situation, experience, or achievement, indicating a sense of being pleased and fulfilled. Phrases of example. First, the pursuit of satisfaction is a futile endeavor. Second, there is no satisfaction in simply existing. Third, he found satisfaction in the simple act of helping others. Word disc. Description: a flat, circular object, often used for playing music or data storage. It can refer to a vinyl record, a compact disc, CD, or a similar circular device used to store information or media. Phrases of example. First, the CD's disc was scratched, making the music skip. Second, he slipped the disc into the player and waited for the familiar hum. Third, the ancient disc revealed secrets long forgotten by humankind. Word okay. Description means acceptable, satisfactory, or agreeable. It indicates approval, agreement, or that something is fine or all right. It's a common and versatile word used in many casual situations. Phrases of example. First, everything was okay, and that was all that mattered. Second, it's okay to be afraid, but don't let it control you. Third, I'm okay, just a little tired. Word wait. Description: to remain still or inactive until something happens or until someone arrives. It means to stay in one place or condition until a desired outcome or person appears. It is used to describe pausing or delaying an action. Phrases of example. First, I will wait for you always, until my last breath. Second, you must wait for the right moment, and then act. Third, don't wait for it. It will never happen. Word bye. Description: a casual way to say goodbye. It's an informal farewell, used when ending a conversation or leaving a place. It's a friendly and relaxed way to signal departure. Phrases of example. First, bye Pip, she said. Second, bye folks, he said, waving. Third, bye sweetie, she called as he left. Word bird. Description: a small animal with feathers that can fly. Birds lay eggs and come in many different colors and sizes. It's a common animal found worldwide, often associated with nature and freedom. Phrases of example. First, I know why the caged bird sings. Second, hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. Third, he was a man who lived his life with a bird in his heart. Word test. Description: a way of examining something to see if it is good or to see how well someone knows something. It can also refer to a trial or a check to see if something works correctly. It's a common word for schoolwork or checking equipment. Phrases of example. First, the test of a man is what he does when no one is watching. Second, a single test, though it may seem small, can change everything. Third, life is a test, and it is meant to be faced, not to be avoided.